What's up, gamers? You're listening or watching an episode of Tech Girl Talks, a podcast that I host. My name is Sam, Tech Girl Right, and normally this podcast is about esports and gaming. For season 3, we're focusing specifically on Counter-Strike, and I have a professional player to chat to today. Golden is a professional Counter-Strike player, currently a free agent, but you probably recognize him because he's been in Fnatic, Cloud9, brief stint in Ninjas and Pajamas, and he, to me, he's just a rad guy. I had a chance to work with him when he was working more in a broadcast capacity, and he's just a wealth of knowledge and really interesting to speak to. He has such a great way of explaining what's going through the minds of the players when they're in the server, which is kind of what I wanted to unpack on today's episode. We obviously know you from Fnatic, from Cloud9. We've got to see you on some Counter-Strike broadcasts as well now, but what is Golden currently doing? I mean, are you looking for a team? Are you looking to move into broadcast? I got to come in straight away and ask that question. What's the plan right now?
So I'm in between like deciding if I want to keep playing right now. It's just been really hard to give it up or go into perhaps a more of a coach role somewhere. Yeah, those are the only two options I've been thinking about. Like being an analyst on a desk is not what I want to do right now, but maybe in the future. But I really want to like be in the competitive um, scene again, and I still like I feel like I have a lot of knowledge to either if I was going to be a coach, it will be the same role as being an IGL for me at least, uh, but without playing, and that's basically it. That's how I think of it.
How did you find yourself at this point though, where you were kind of teamless and now trying to maybe find another team to get into? I mean, what would you say was the thing that kind of paused the competitive career?
This is a question that I don't have the answer to. I feel like maybe the pro scene didn't see my style of play fitting for them. Just because I think I had a really rough period, and like when Corona hit, 2021 was not a good year. Like we were losing for 6 months straight. We made one final in 6 months, and after that, it didn't. The results showed they were very poor. So I was kind of the guy who took the hit, kind of, and I kind of deserved it, but not to a degree where my knowledge about the game or like my in-game skills. I still believe I have I have a pretty good aim, but sometimes the team atmosphere and the mental stuff takes over.
This was the reason I wanted to speak to you though, because I think a lot of people have a fantasy in their head about what it takes to be a professional player in Counter-Strike. So what they see is, I mean, right now the Rio Major is happening. So they see the major and they see the glitz and the glam, and you're traveling around the world playing games. What is it actually like as a professional player? What does a normal day look like? So say you're not traveling to a tournament. What does your normal day look like?
So normal day for me at least was waking up, having breakfast, and then having 30 minutes talk with the team before we start with any briefings or starting like the day as we say our job. Before we start that, we just like sit in TeamSpeak or like like a communication app and just talk. Just start the day, have a chill, relaxed 30 minutes, and then when the time hits at like 10:30, that's when we start the day. We go through the things we have prepped for the practice day. Mostly like small stuff or big tactics. Then that will take approximately 1 to 2 hours, depending on how much briefing I have. And after that, it's just practice for 2 hours against another top team. And then we take a break, we take some lunch, and then we come back again, and we play for 2 or 3 hours more against another team we practice for approximately 5 hours pure CS, and 2 hours is mostly like theory. We just talk about CS. And then when the day finished at like maybe 6 p.m., that's when we talk about and assess the day. We talk about what went well and what was bad, what we need to improve on, basically.
I mean, that is a
And,
lot when you.
and yeah, yeah.
I was going to say that is a lot when you think about it, to be doing that day in and day out. It's a lot of information to take on board, and it's also a lot of time in front of a screen, not really dealing with people. It's not like an office job where you can take a tea break or you can play on Facebook for a little bit. I mean, this is really focused all the time. That must be quite draining on your mental health.
Yeah, and the day doesn't finish after we finish the practice, right? So for the briefing to be happening the next day, or to know what to improve on, like what we talked about, someone needs to plan it, and someone needs to mostly like prep it. So it was basically me mostly, and then the coach, and some players had some ideas here and there. Um, yeah, that's basically a typical day was finishing practice, taking 1 hour off, and then going at it until you go to bed, basically.
And
So
again,
it was all day.
all day and like very little time outside of that, if you like, to kind of, go to the gym or prep food, or I suppose spend time with like your friends and family. And that's all year. That's the intensity that you're playing at. Am I correct?
Yeah. So you need to have that like intensity just because if you want to be in the top, you need to be you need to be creative all the time almost, and you need to improve on the smallest stuff that you can imagine. If there is a problem with a timing on 1 second, then you need to fix it like as soon as possible. Um, and that goes on like all maps, and it goes into even how you speak with each other, and there are so many small details. Like I could write a long list, but um, yeah, it's basically you come to a certain level that you just cannot create something big. You just need to do the smaller stuff, so or small details better.
And here's the thing. So the break, if you like, in between all of that is when you get to travel to LAN. It's when you get to go to these big tournaments and have a crowd shouting and feed that adrenaline. But COVID happens for you and you're now stuck inside doing this day in and day out, and tournaments are no longer travel. You're kind of playing at home as well. Do you think that also played a role in performance, because it just felt like you were never leaving the chair that you were sitting in?
Yeah, most definitely. It like COVID hit the hardest on my team, just because the players we had and the experience on LAN, like the age of the players that we were all like most of us were above 25, and that's when you are more social in real life, and then you have more obligations and all that stuff. And those kind of things just kind of messed up with being at home, because when we were at events, I felt like all those obligations were just not there. Like we only focused on CS, and that was the only thing that mattered. And when we were on stage playing with experienced teammates, they could do a lot of stuff that the enemy team would not like comprehend, or like been they were doing stuff that people were doing online, but they couldn't do it on LAN. So that was the main difference in our team, and the playstyle changed a lot for us. So we were playing more scared. We never done that, and it just messed it up really bad. Like we were I think we were top one or top two before COVID, and COVID hits. Like we went below top 30. That's insane.
It's such a big drop, but I do think it's that change, because I mean we've spoken about it. We've had the chance to work on broadcasts together. There are players that thrive in front of a crowd. They thrive on LAN. And then there's players that are fantastic online, but if you put them in front of a crowd, they fall to pieces. you're sitting in a position where for years you had that LAN experience to suddenly be playing inside. Also, maybe a situation where there's not as much adrenaline. Maybe it doesn't feel as real as a live event. I'm sure it can be quite taxing, like you said, on all the players in your team. And then even more so on you specifically, because you felt this need to kind of uplift everyone and keep pushing.
Yeah, it was not easy in any way. I think uh, like you think at one point when you're in that situation that you need to play more, you need to do more, and I can say that it only went worse for us when were doing that. For some reason, we couldn't just not get out of the slump, and when that happened, when it hit us, we found no way out because we most of the time when we were seeing each other and talking to each other in real life, we were being able to have that team atmosphere and joke and talk, being social with each other and creating that bond was so much easier. But when everyone was just like at home talking through a mic, not even seeing their faces all the time, it kind of hits you that how we work as humans, that you like eye contact is really important.
I can imagine. And that's the thing, because as much as people, outside of gaming will say, oh, gamers are nerds, they don't socialize, not the case. I think in any team, having that one on one interaction, that real life interaction is so important. But I am curious because for me, competitive players, every player that I've met that's played at the top, the amounts of pressure they put on themselves is so much. So you'll see a lot of the news reports and various analysts will talk about the pressure from the crowd or the pressure from sponsors or the pressure from the organization. But do you find that the person who puts the most pressure on you is actually yourself?
Yeah, most definitely. I think my first time in Fnatic, um, I my issue was that I was taking all the blame on me. Like we lost in semifinals, yeah, that was my fault. I could have done better. Or I had a if I was not even the one to blame in the server for certain things, but I was thinking that I could have prevented it, so I took the blame on me. So it becomes a problem where you're not playing with confidence anymore. You're just playing scared. And as an IGL, I think that's the thing I kind of worked on. That hey, listen, sometimes you need to be ego, like have a little more ego and just take it. Like it's not always your fault, and that's where I improved more. But you can't do that when you're losing for 6 months straight. You kind of have to blame yourself. I think everyone on the team kind of blame themselves, but still, uh, it needs to be balanced. You need to find a balance where it's not affecting your daily performance. It also keeps you humble.
Do you think you found that balance?
No, I don't think I don't think that uh, it's easy to find it, but with time and experience, I think, or like when you mature more, I think you will be able to. But there will always be a up and down on that certain area.
Let's rewind a bit and go right back to the start of your career. What was it that made you decide this is it? I want to play Counter Strike professionally, and also that moment where you went, actually, I can play Counter Strike professionally. What would you say was the kickstart of Golden?
Damn. So I can start with that. In 2009, I was 16 or 17. I was playing Source. The players I was playing with thought that I was really, really good. Then I like one of the best 16 years old they've seen. Um, but then I had to quit to finish school and just focus on that. So I took a break from 2009, 2015, and that's when CS:GO already came out in 2012, and I was 3 years late, and I hadn't played in like 6 years. Um, I quit my job. This is literally how it happens. I got enough money to buy a computer, and not a state like a PC. It was like a laptop. I bought a gaming laptop, and then I figured out that I need a monitor because the monitor I had on the laptop was not enough, and the keyboard was messy. So I had to buy a keyboard and a mouse, uh, um, and uh, yeah, monitor, and then that was it. I plugged it in with the DisplayPort and all that, and I told myself, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do. Like I know I can do it, and none like my family didn't want me to do it. I didn't tell my friends because if I told my friends I was going to do this, they would say I'm I'm making a mistake, and I didn't want anyone near me to doubt me. Uh, but I did it anyways. Yeah, against what my family said, my uh, brother and sisters. Sorry, brother and sister. Uh, and I did it. So it took me. So I put a schedule for myself, like what to do in that, like when I start the day. So I start the day playing deathmatch, aim like against bots, practicing my aim. I did that for 3 months before I even started playing matchmaking. Then I started to play a little bit more competitive, and then it was still 2015. I found a team that I could like mix with and play, and nothing serious. And then that was my way in, and that's where I got noticed. 2016, Fnatic Academy was going to be made, and I was going to be part of it. That took me what like 1.5 year. I got a contract after I started playing CS:GO. Um, yeah, and from there, from Fnatic Academy to Fnatic, from Fnatic to Cloud9, from Cloud9 a short period in the major with NIP, and then from that to Fnatic again.
Do you think it's harder now for new players who or for younger players, if you like, who are playing CS:GO who want to get spotted? Do you think it's tougher for them to find an in?
I think it has not been easier than it is right now because they have FPL, they have agents, they have like they're social on Twitter. The biggest part is FPL. Like they could stream and get into FPL, and they couldn't get noticed in no time. Like they don't have to go through maybe the bad teams, or like not the bad teams, sorry, like going that curve, like you're playing in a this team and then you're playing in a better team and then a better team. They just go to top one sometimes, and then like the top tier teams. Uh, it just shows that um yes, it is very possible and much easier than before. A perfect example is Monacy. Like he played in their academy team and then immediately, sorry, in Navi academy team, and then to G2. That didn't take a long time, and he only played in 2 teams.
So do you think it makes it tougher for players like you who've had to grind for all those years? Do you think people now look and like you said, you know your aim is still good, you know you still have a lot of knowledge, but maybe teams are keeping their eye on they all want the next the next new young best thing. They're not really looking at what else is potentially available.
Um, I'm not to take anything from the new players either. I really think they work really hard. I'll say that they are probably doing more than what I'm doing right now to come back. In all honesty, they deserve all the credit. Like these young guys are putting the time they're putting in is uh so much more than perhaps what I would do at this age. But experience is experience. You can't kind of cheat that. You need to be on LAN. You need to have to play those scenarios. You need to have, you, like, you need to know how your play style. So when I was in the same path they were on right now, the youngsters, I didn't have an identity. I didn't know how I wanted to play CS till like I matured and like in the game. Um, and that's when my team played much better when I was in that situation. like when I found my own identity and playstyle.
I love how humble you are because you always give credit to everyone. You could have just been like, yeah, these youngsters, they don't know what it's like. I have all but you've always been this way where you're very quick to commend anyone for the work they do. So I'm curious about you though. When you mentioned your play style, what would you say now? Like you mentioned, you've kind of been able to define your play style. What is it? How would you define it if you had to speak it out?
Always believed in a dynamic, like playstyle where there isn't really except like one or two roles in the team where you need to be able to define them. But most of the time, you will need to do everything as a teammate to win a round. So sometimes you need to be a lurker. You didn't even want to, but you just need to do it. Uh, and those kind of like stuff um, needs to be happening very quickly. And those decisions, players don't tend to make them if you don't teach them. And that's where like I come in and then like, hey, listen, if you do this, we will have the most percentage to win this round if you do a certain thing. You don't need to do like I'm not asking you to kill the entire team. I'm just asking you to do one small thing so you can teammate can uh how do you say it? Can play off of it. So I like to maybe perhaps fake a lot, do small things that messes up with their thinking, or they maybe think they're gonna do this or they're gonna do that, and at the end, it will always boils down for me at the percentages. I don't want to play with emotions in terms of, oh, this guy has been killing us a lot. We need to go there and just like, the entire team. No, like you mid round, I like to make the calls. The calls like to finish the round. I like to make it in the middle of the round where I've had gathered enough information, and then where is the best place to go right now for the team with what we have. And it sounds easy, but there's a lot of steps to it, and you need to be able to think very fast. Like the decision could be made in less than like 5 seconds in the mid round while you're playing and focusing on other stuff as well. And I think that's my biggest strength in the game, like knowing when to make the call and what call to make.
Do you enjoy the role of IGL? I mean, is that a position that you actively wanted when you started playing, or is it something you sort of fell into?
I didn't really want to, but I fell into it because when Fnatic Academy was made, the coach said, I think you should be the IGL. And honestly, I just wanted to take an opportunity, and I've always had some leader qualities, and I just, went with it, and I liked it a lot. So it stuck with me.
What do
And
you
I also have the personality of being a leader, so it kind of made it easier in the long term.
what do you think makes a good IGL?
I think um, seeing like being open to your teammates about certain stuff that they want, as well as you are determined in what your vision is. Finding your vision is not so there's a lot of IGLs that I see nowadays that basically don't have their identity, as I was speaking of. They're just playing the game to, perhaps win one or two matches, and yeah, and they probably could get it into a final or whatnot. They may perhaps win a tournament. The consistency of how they call and how they play, it doesn't change after that. Like they're not being creative enough to remember what they did last time, or like the match before, and doing it in a different way or changing up the timings. I feel like a lot of players and IGLs lack in that area where they keep doing the same thing, and that's when I wasn't like playing the top tier. That was so easy for us to read. Like I honestly playing against a lot of teams, like yeah, they're gonna do that, or they did this, so they're gonna finish off with this, or like in the long term, that's not gonna work out. You need to. This is why the way. Okay, now I'm gonna say it. This is gonna sound cocky, but the way I think that they're making their calls in the spawn. They're not making them in the mid round. In the mid round, it's harder to realize what the other team is gonna do. And that's the thing with a lot of IGLs. They just call and spawn and just run and doing it. Sometimes it's good, but most of the time it's not the most consistent way. And I think people need IGLs needs to be more uh, loose in terms of playing more random. So giving the players more freedom, give you also more randomness, and no one can read you at that point. Sorry, it will be harder for teams to read you.
So one, I don't think
That's
that
what
that's not cocky. I think that's confidence, which is exactly what you need to play at the top level. So I wouldn't take that away from you. But I do like what you were saying there, because I think exactly that. You can sort of see sometimes the team isn't dynamic. There's a set formula. This is what they're going to do, and even when it's not working. Whereas to be the best in the world, you need to be dynamic. You need to be able to change it up, like you said, like early on in the game, mid round, end. You need to be able to constantly be reading the game and changing it, and that's ultimately, I would say, the only way you get into the top level and play and be one of the top in the world.
like there are still some teams that just keep doing it in the freeze time still to in the top, but you can also see that they're not the most consistent team. And what also bails them out most of the time is the qualities of the individual players on the team who are making a remarkable like a round. They're taking 1 or 2 kills, and they're having a really good game, and that changes a lot for in terms of those kind of stuff like the tactics. So it might look good result wise, but gameplay wise, it doesn't look good if someone knows how they're playing. That's how, like, if I'm watching a top tier team and I can see that they're not making the good calls. They're just getting bailed out by some remarkable plays.
What is the one thing you miss the most about competing in one of the top teams? Is there a specific thing?
Mm, so when we were traveling a lot, we didn't want to travel. Uh, but now I kind of miss it. I miss going to another country, preparing for the tournament, being in that set of that being that mindset where you're gonna compete now, so you know whatever gear that kicks in your head or whatever happens with the adrenaline and all that stuff, I miss it a lot. And getting to quarterfinals, semifinals, and you're on stage, um, and embracing the crowd, and you know not being scared of being on the stage. I really miss that, because why I missed that so much is just because when I was on a stage, I don't remember which event it was, I was really nervous, and I was like, you know, I should just embrace this. Why am I being nervous? This is what I want to do. This is fun. This is everything I've dreamed of. Um, let's not be scared. And this is me talking to myself in my head. Uh, and that's when after that day, it went much better for me on stage, and just embracing the noise and the crowd, because you can't control it. So whatever you need to do, just let it happen and go with it.
If you have to look back, what is the event, the one event that you would say was your absolute favorite to play in?
It must be the 2018 Katowice in the like when we won it in the final. Uh, yeah, that's definitely my favorite one, because that was my first big win, like tier 1 tournament, and we did it in such a manner where I don't think even us as a team believed in ourselves. Apparently, I didn't know all the issues until after, but yeah, uh, the, that was my favorite event.
I'm always curious, how difficult is it when you go from a win like that? So you've got all that chaos on stage, everyone shouting, the big celebration afterwards, because there's always that big celebration with the team, and then everyone gets on planes and heads home. Is it difficult to adjust for you? Did you ever find that quite difficult to kind of balance the immense highs of playing professionally with the immense lows of playing professionally?
Mm, that's a good question. I haven't thought about it. Like it just I think it kind of just I go with my day. That's it. Didn't change a lot when we got home. We were happy, and when oh, one thing it changed actually. So when we got back to the server to practice, we were playing with much more confidence. Definitely that one thing changed, but in terms of adjusting to the um, like everything after you won, there was not uh, too much stuff going on.
So now I'm curious. I have two questions that I always ask at the end of these interviews, and I've asked every guest so far, but I am actually the most excited to hear your answers. So the first one is, who was the player that you met at some point at the start of your career? There's that moment. So you were with me when I got to meet Fallen. That was my moment. Fallen and Forest, me behaving like a child. I was so excited. I mean, you were at that event with me, but I'm curious, what was the moment, and who was the player that you got to meet in real life, and suddenly in the back of your head you were speaking to yourself going, this is it, like I've done it and I'm here where I want to be playing with these people. Can you remember who that player was?
Um, no, but I had another thing going on with that was when I was remember when I told you that I was practicing AMAP in 3 months before I was doing anything else when I started. I was thinking about playing in Fnatic at that time. So I was thinking of playing with the players I played with 2 years later. So that was when I was at the boot camp at JW's house. That was kind of the realization that I even prepared a speech on a paper, and I was like, this is me, and they found it to be very cute because no one else had done it before, and I was so excited that yeah
It's almost like
yeah that,
yeah, you manifested it. You were thinking about it. You were practicing every day. You put it out there, and ultimately you made your dream come true on your own.
Yeah, definitely. And to add to that was that I also, when I was in Cancun, I met Fallen for the first time, and Flusha told him that Golden wants to take a picture with you, like, because I told Flusha that I really liked how Fallen plays, and yeah, from there the team was like, yeah, he's fanboying you, so Gold's take a picture with him. I still have that picture.
I still have my first picture with Fallen as well. You were there with me. I'm okay. We can fangirl and fanboy. I think
Yeah.
it's allowed. I also think like the moment you stop being a fan of those players, that like for me, Forrest, watching him and Get Right, the moment you stop being a fan of those players, I'm kind of like, why are you even involved anymore? You know, like why are you still doing this? Maybe it's time to go get a desk job, because you got to have a little bit of a fan inside of you when you work or play Counter Strike.
Yeah, and then you get your own fans. Uh, Luckily, if you're good, or if they so likes you how you play. So yeah,
That's the dream, right? To get your own fans, to be that good. You've got that. I will never be that good in the server, but it's fine. I'll just live vicariously through you. My final question. I always like to end these episodes with this one. I actually think this might be the hardest one. So let's see how it goes. But why do you love Counter Strike?
oh wow. Uh, I love Counter-Strike because every time I play, it's different from when it was the other times. There is always something new that that I can adjust to and adapt to, and I really like that about the game. I don't feel like there's always something you can be better on, and uh, it never ends. And I like that. I always like to better myself, and I think CS is that. And uh, as shooting, outplaying people, outcalling people. For me, it's playing mind games, winning those kind of stuff makes it. I find a lot of joy in that, and also the team aspect.
Thanks so much for watching or listening Tech Girl Talks, the podcast that I'm running currently, season 3, obviously about Counter-Strike. I've put all Golden's social media in the description to this podcast, so you can go check him out. And if you enjoyed or have any feedback about what you heard, then hit me up at TechGirlZA pretty much on all social media. Do yourself a favor as well. If the spirit moves you, hit the subscribe button on your platform of choice. I'd appreciate it very much.